Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Greedy Keeps. Today we have Michael Levine, the multiple time top four Heliod player. What's up, Michael? How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk Heliod, talk Magic. You know, it's
I am always excited to talk about Heliod.
yeah. Are there any commanders you're excited to talk about besides Heliod?
Well, I can talk endlessly about Lin Civi too. Lin Civi was my first mono white competitive EDH deck.
All
Um,
right.
I don't think anyone plays Lin Civi anymore. I think I was the only one, and I will forever be the only one. But
There was a Lin City Discord, wasn't there?
there is. I run the Lin Civi Discord. Every once in a
All
while,
right.
people join. No one really talks to them. When new cards come out, we talk because it's always like, well, if they printed new changelings or rebels, the deck could get some,
That's
power.
that's fair, actually. I mean, we're probably
Yeah.
gonna see. There's gonna be changelings in Commander Legends, right?
I
Probably.
hope so. That would be nice. I mean, last time they printed changelings, we didn't really get anything. There's that one colorless construct changeling, the artifact one.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the Mariner has blue in it. If they had made that a mono white changeling,
What's
that
the
would have been better.
Mariner?
It's like creatures you control gain counter any spell or ability that targets it unless they pay one.
That would have
That
been good.
That would have been good, but no, they had to make that
All right.
blue-white instead of just white. Yeah. So those are the two decks that I like talking about most. I do play some other decks though. Like we talked on Twitter. I play Silas Timna sometimes. I do like looping baubles and
Yeah,
then spell bombs.
I played when I was playing a lot more Conquest. I played a Silas and Crom, and it was like a docs when Dockside was legal. It was like a Dockside Bulls Citadel deck with like reanimation and all the baubles, and it was a lot
Oh,
of
that's
fun.
cool.
Yeah, because like the only good fast mana is like Chrome Mox and like Mox Opal and Mox Amber. So I was like, all right, I can play a 3 mana partner commander that turns on Mox Amber, and then it turns on Mox Opal. So
Yeah, that's true.
I was like,
Yeah,
all right.
I liked Silas because you can use spell bombs and stuff to crack Doomsday piles. So I was like originally going for Doomsday. I think the deck really, the last version of it I was playing was just a consult deck because it was just like Doomsday doesn't just beat straight consult. It's just I don't know.
Sadly,
Yeah,
yeah. I've been actually looking into Silas Jessica. Jessica got leaked
yeah.
few
I am
days
also
ago.
into that as a deck. Yeah, Jessica is a pretty good card, I think.
Yeah, I did the math today. It's like you have to deal like 290 damage. Yeah, sorry, you need 290 mana to kill someone. I just wanted to see if it was possible to like manually like eggs, like
Yeah,
just like how much looping of egg stuff would I have to do in a non-deterministic way to like just kill the table?
yeah.
It's like 300 mana, but maybe
So the interesting thing with that is like I think we were talking on Twitter and we were talking about Silas being a good way to set up scepter combos and it's
oh
like what
yeah,
is your outlet and it could be Thrasios and that gives you green or it could be Jessica and now you have red and I
which
think
is
that
better.
gives you breach, it gives you if you're already trying to play things from your graveyard, having the backup of being able to play breach is really nice, being able to play dockside gamble.
I had not considered the Entomb. I know we had talked about it, but I had not
Yeah,
considered the Entomb Isochron Scepter lines. That's very
yeah,
interesting. That's probably a deck. There's no way that's not a deck. Because Grix is like, if we're being honest with ourselves, I mean, Kess is pretty cool, but there's not a broken like Grixis general. I don't think there's a
no,
single general I point to, and I'm just like, that's absurd. How do we?
yeah,
How did this happen? Like Thrasios and Timna Crom,
yeah.
Najila. Like, there's nothing quite there. I could see Jessica Silas as like a 3 mana like graveyard Isochron Scepter deck being like actually pretty sick.
And we were talking about mid-range console decks. I mean, Jessica is replayable removal, right? So
Oh
you
yeah,
actually have a kind of mid-range game where you can take hate bears off the board multiple times. You can like play it slow and not worry about the stack just filling up the board. So I think it could be kind of interesting. It's
and
a
it's the amount of times you've played a commander. So even with Silas and Jessica, like your Jessica on a 3 mana Jessica is still like a shock
yeah,
out of the command zone, and then also doesn't it like give double strike or triple strike or something?
yeah. It does 3 times the damage. So
Wait,
people were talking about doing a Boros like Jessica thing, and just being like, here's
One
my
shot
double striker that does 9 damage
18 or
3 times or
something.
something.
Oh my god. All right, we are way off topic here. We're here to talk about Heliod, and we're talking about Grixis good stuff. So, all right, do you
Yeah.
have any heuristics or general guidelines for mulliganing with Heliod? Anything you generally look for in a starting hand?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 Heliod hands that I say are like keepable. Um, so the first one is like you have hate for the table, and it's the perfect hate, and maybe a way to protect that perfect hate. It You obviously don't have the density to always have hate for every person in your pod, but sometimes you get a nice hand where like I can cover everyone, and because of that, people might help protect my stuff because no one wants the other person to remove the hate that's selectively for them, right?
Yeah,
So
it's like I remember during when Flash Hulk was seeing a lot of play, like you'd protect a Grafdigger's Cage even if you were on Flash Hulk because you're like, I have console lined up,
yeah,
and if they're getting rid of this Grafdigger's Cage, that means they have it.
exactly.
So I'm gonna protect the Grafdigger's Cage so that I can then go for it with like console next turn or something like that. So yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of
So
sense to me.
I like to play into that dynamic when I can, and it's really nice when you have, say, a mom effect, so that you can protect some of the hate bears. Um, so that hand I'll keep, even though there's no direct line to comboing. After that, though, you should only ever keep hands, I think, that have a direct line to comboing, and so you can have a hand that has, good generic hate and say a tutor, and that's a good hand to keep. So it's like Thorn, Thalia, and Recruiter of the Guard. I will keep that hand. Um, or even just like Graveyard Hate, since Breach is so popular. Graveyard Hate, and say a Rule of Law and one of the tutors. I'll keep that hand. And then you can keep all in. This is a fast ballista combo hand, and like that's the hand I kept in the grand finals at Oktoberfest, where it was just workshop, remote farm, walking ballista, and that meant I'd have a turn 3 ballista combo, and that was unprotected. I was just gonna go all in with no protection, because sometimes you can just race the table. I mean, you don't want to take that bet against Turbo Nas decks usually, but at the table that was Godo, Kinnan, and then this crazy Kalia deck that's like trying to throw down Villas and cast Adnaz, I was like, there's a chance for me to be able to do this on turn 3, especially because I was before Godo and turn order. And I think that's a reasonable hand to keep, mattering on what pot it is. Um, you can get punished. I feel like I kind of got punished for doing this. I did have removal because I had a Skyclave apparition and I had a Rule of Law. So these things kind of help me out. But you can't get punished like when someone drops a Curse Totem and now you really can't execute that smooth game plan. Because one of the good things about a fast hand is that you're going to be mana efficient and you're going to just go, turn 1, play my ramp, turn 2, play my Heliod, turn 3, play my Ballista. The minute you disrupt that flow and you're no longer playing mana efficient and now you got to like scramble for hate, it's kind of a bad look. and I remember I was very mad because I think I used a remote farm depletion counter in order to, and still had mana left at the end of the turn. So you just feel bad. It's like, I can't believe I had to waste one of my depletion lands.
Yeah.
Um, but those are the 3 hands that I like to keep. After that, it's like very situational. There are hands where you're just like, I want to see what this could do. I don't think it's that bad, especially when you're down to 6 or 5. You start to keep weird hands. But if I don't have one of those hands as my first 7, one of those 3 types of hands, I usually will go for the next 7, unless it's really enticing. Like, there are some cool things you can do with like land tax, Bazaar of Baghdad, and I've certainly kept a hand going second with land tax, Bazaar of Baghdad, being like, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna draw a bunch of cards. Let's do that.
That's
But
interesting.
that's one of my favorite combos. I guess
That's
in
like a
the
vintage. That's like a vintage combo. That's like some
yeah,
1995 magic right there.
exactly, and it's like way better in my opinion. It just feels so much better than tax rack. Like land tax scroll rack is fun, but it's so much mana. You're putting 2 on the scroll rack, 1 a turn. Bizarre. It's just like, nope.
You're just like, this land, I'm just gonna draw. Just
Yeah,
draw two
yeah.
cards.
That is one of my favorite interactions in the deck because it just feels so weird when you do it. There are like fast locks, like Uba Mask locks or Knowledge Pool locks. You can keep those too. They're just a lot more fragile to just keep the hand on the back of I can get like a fast Uba Mask lock. Um,
And those are locks where you have like an Uba Mask and a Knowledge Pool in play, but you have like a Draenith in play.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with Knowledge Pool, it can be any of the Rule of Law effects, and then people can only cast their commanders. And hopefully, if you have any Hate Bears on board, Heliod plus Hate
Oh
Bears
yeah,
means
you'll
you're gonna
like
kill people.
yeah, and you're gonna gain life, so there's like almost no way that you lose, except for commander damage. But even then, you can just
Yeah,
like make your blockers huge, or put so much pressure on them that you can kind of race them.
yeah. The one problem is usually Kenrith, because Kenrith can also grow
Oh, and
and can
trample.
gain trample.
Yes.
So that's a bad one for me. Which I set up a knowledge pool lock at the tournament this weekend against a Kenrith player. I did do it because really I was trying to buy time to assemble ballista. So like the lock was a distraction. I knew someone had a blast zone, so the block was going to get blown up.
Oh,
And
that's really interesting.
I was just hoping to get enough time to get to the combo, which is how it played out. I
Did you win
it
that
really
game?
just I did win that game. Yeah, and that
That's
was
sick.
I set that up on purpose, but usually with knowledge pool rule of law you win. I mean, not that many people are on blast zone. It's only low color decks that are going to be on blast zone. And Kenrith is falling out of favor. There's like these Kenrith breach decks because you and the Kenrith dockside decks, but for some reason it's not as popular.
I
Probably
think
because it costs 5 mana.
yeah, 5 mana. I will say one thing that kind of I think that knowledge pool lock situation really I think displays an aspect of the deck that is important to mention. You like you're playing 4D chess right there, right? Like you're locking the table in a way that you knew was not actually a true lock, which many people might
Yeah,
say, "Oh, he missed it. He didn't see that there was a whatever in play." It's like, no, you actually did see it. You were just using that lock to prevent people from being able to like move forward in the game, so you could set up a combo on a following turn.
yes. And
There's a
I will
lot of
say
that.
in that game, one thing I did, so I was like literally explaining the combos. I was like, this is how this lock works, and this is how you can break this lock. And one of it's because I don't like playing games where like people make mistakes because they don't exactly understand what's going on. That doesn't feel fun to me. And two, because I wanted them to know that they should try to break the lock. I didn't want to
Yeah,
get killed by Kenrith. I wanted to
that's
get them to break the
that
lock.
is some that is some tight play right there. That is some tight play. Telling your opponents what to do in a way that they might not realize you're telling them what to do
Yeah,
is is so tight. Like
yeah.
it's
Well, my favorite part about that is that the lock I had was with Archon of Emeria, and I had a Mask of Memory attached to it. So I was actually digging 2 cards a turn. So I knew I just wanted them to waste like 5 turn
oh
cycles. Let me set up my hand. When they broke it, my hand was Orm's Chant, Silence, Grand Abolisher, I think a Mana Vault, and Walking Ballista. So I literally just Orm's Chanted one person, silenced the next person, and then
just went for it.
put Abolisher and went for it. So like that's the kind of thing you need to do sometimes is just get to the point where you can set up a good hand, know they're going to break it, and try to time it right.
That's
Um,
sick. That's awesome. All right, I think we've spent a good 15 minutes leading up to the keeps. So why don't we get
yeah,
started? We're just gonna do a few hands, and afterwards we can spend some time talking. All
yeah,
right. So our first hand here is Mask of Memory, Remote Farm, Pithy Needle, Arid Mesa, Benevolent Bodyguard, Scrapyard Recombiner, and Ranger of Eos. Um, a card here that there's 2 cards here that people might not be familiar with. Benevolent Bodyguard. It's a. Do you mind reading
yeah,
what that does?
yeah. So it's a 1 mana 1/1 that you can sack to give another creature protection from a color of your choice until end of turn. The
And
reason
then
we play this,
oh, go ahead.
okay, the reason why we play this is because it's a mom effect that doesn't need a turn to be active, so you can play it out, and then at any time you can use it. Um, these are basically our forms of counter spells. We're not gonna counter removal spells, but we can blank them with things like Bodyguard. And the really nice thing about them is they're very hard to have a counter war against. Like once they're on board, we have basically a response to removal that is uncounterable by
It
most
gets
cards that we're playing.
it gets under the rule of law and the
Yeah.
deafening silence as well.
Yep,
So
exactly.
it's
So
very
so it's
powerful.
really nice to be able to say, well, you only when I have my rule on play, you get one removal spell on the ballista, but I'm gonna be able to use my Mother of Runes effect or my Bodyguard effect. So that's a really good card. We're actually talking about switching this one out for a more obscure card. There's a 1 mana 1/1 that you can sack to regenerate a creature. Um, that's good because most of the removal people are using right now is actually like Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Fire Covenant, and it has a second ability. 2 white, tap sack it to counter a spell targeting an enchantment you control, which is,
Whoa!
yeah. So then it protects Heliod, but it also protects Rule of Law, which is kind of nice.
Wow, that's really
Um,
cool. And
yeah, so
so
that's some old card, something Mater. I can't remember the full name. I have one sitting around for if I ever wanted to try it. So we might sub these cards out, but it's really nice that you can use them right away.
and the other one
Um,
is Scrapyard Recombiner, which we don't have to go into as much detail for, but it's just basically another tutor for um, Walking Ballista, which is
it's
like the one card combo in this deck.
Yes. The secret really good thing about this card is so you tap and sack an artifact to search for a construct. Walking Ballista is a construct, and so is Triskelion. So it actually can get both. And you don't have to sack itself. So you can go, end of turn, sack some mana,
Oh,
say a mana vault that's tapped, get your Walking Ballista. On your turn, you can now get the Triskelion as backup. And it has modular. So you can cast your Ballista for X=1 and then sack the Scrapyard Recombiner to put counters on Ballista.
what?
Um, yeah, so that's a nice line. I
That's insane!
It's really nice. And the other cool thing about Scrapyard that I really really like, so Ranger Captain of Eos, which is next to it, searches for 2 CMC 1 or less, puts them in the hand. If you have a rule of law out and you cast something like Ranger of Eos or Ranger Captain of Eos, and someone has a wheel, I get wheeled all the time with Walking Ballista in my hand. With Scrapyard Recombiner, you wait. You drop it for 3, and then you don't. It's like a Wishclaw Talisman. You don't use it until you need to use it because there's no reason to expose the card to a wheel. So I really like that. I think I had one on board for like 6 or 7 turns in one match, just waiting for the time where I could use it, where I knew it was safe, and that's really really nice. I do like that.
So is this a keepable hand in your opinion?
It's close, but it's not. The reason why, so Remote Farm is a dangerous card. If you only have a 2-land hand and one of them is Remote Farm, you have to be like, what can I do in the first 3 turns to really make sure I have time to get more mana? In this case, if you use it on the first turn, the second turn you're probably going to cast Recombiner. So you've committed no hate to the board at all, and you now need to use the farm to cast Heliod the next turn before you can go off. So this is a little bit of a sketchy keep. If, say, the Mask of Memory was another land or Grim Monolith, I would say this is maybe keepable. You also have a kind of awful redundancy of Ranger and Scrapyard. One of them is going to be useless unless someone counters it. People don't often counter these, especially because a lot of people are playing counter spells that are negate effects right
Yeah.
now. So you don't
Or
really
like a
need to.
miscast, something
Yeah.
very specific.
And the other problem is you can't really imagine a good ordering of events where you're gonna get the bodyguard down. You could say Arid Mesa for plains turn 1, play bodyguard. Next turn play Pithing Needle. Third turn, hope you have another land, and then maybe cast Heliod or one of the tutors. But it's a little sketchy. And Pithing Needle is not the best of your hate pieces. it's it's really kind of narrow. It's nice for, it was really good in Scepter times, but it's pretty good when there's like certain outlets you need to use it on.
Like it's good against like Kinnan, right? Like
Kinnan, it's good against Urza. It's good against Thrasios decks. But it's not generically good enough to be the only hate piece. And now you have this Mask of Memory, which is the best draw engine the deck really has, but you have pretty much no time where you're going to try to use it. So if this was your second 7, I would say you might keep this. If it was a 6, you would definitely keep it and probably get rid of Ranger of Eos. Um,
This is actually
or
like probably on the better side of sixes, right?
Yeah,
It's
for
like,
6s, this is definitely a hand you would keep, and this would actually be a keepable 5 where you just ditch Ranger and Mask. But you would never would want to keep this as your first 7, and it would be highly suspect as your second 7, I think.
all right. So let's take a look at another one. All right. So this time we have Drannith Magistrate, Snow-Covered Plains, Land Tax, Serra Sanctum, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, Prismatic Vista, and Skyclave Apparition. Now, Skyclave Apparition is also a newer card.
Yes.
I will read that one real quick. So it's one white white for a core spirit creature. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to one target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion token, where X is the converted mana cost of the creature. Um, do you mind real quick explaining why you're on Skyclave Apparition? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so this is 3 mana, basically unconditional removal. I mean, in our format, there's not a lot of times where I'm trying to target something CMC greater than 4. Um, Yeah, it's sorcery speed, but we've kind of exhausted in white the instant speed, unconditional removal. It's a creature, which means, like we talked about with counter spells, it gets around a lot of the counter magic people are playing. Unlike a traditional O-ring effect, when it leaves, the permanent doesn't come back. They get that creature token instead.
Oh, I
So
didn't
that's
know.
really
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, they
that's
only
really
get the
cool.
creature token. Um, it doesn't get the cost doesn't go up with a Thorn or a Thalia in play. We have some creature recursion, so that means if it gets killed, we can use it again, which is kind of nice. It's tutorable by Recruiter of the Guard. So for these reasons, it's nice to include. And importantly, we need to be able to remove Null Rod, Curse Totem, and Collector Oof. The fact that this can hit all 3 of those is really, really good.
That's actually I for some reason I just assumed after even reading it that you got the permanent back. So reading that now, it's just a 3 mana removal spell for
Yeah,
any
exactly.
permanent. That's actually kind of insane on a body, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So and that's why I've really liked it. It made me wonder if we should start playing things like Eldrazi Displacer, because this is like would be a great thing to loop with Eldrazi Displacer, to be honest. And the creatures, they matter a little bit because when we go into an aggro mode, we really benefit from having more creatures and bigger
You can
creatures.
always just Eldrazi displace the tokens. It's fine.
Exactly. So
It's
that's
fine.
I think it's fine. So this is a thing where I've actually considered Eldrazi Displacer. If it was a little bit cheaper, like if it was 3 mana to play and 2 mana to activate, I would be.
Yeah. Are you on the 2 mana flash creature that says if a creature would enter without being cast, you exile it instead?
We were, and we all collectively on on the Discord server were kind of like we should cut this because it wasn't getting much use. If I went back to Displacer, I'd probably put that. Well,
Yeah.
there's this thing, right? It's a good combo with Displacer because you permanently exile people's creatures. It also means you can't value Displacer anymore.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So there's a little tension there. With when I saw the Kalia deck, I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't cut the priest, the 2 mana flash guy, but I'm kind of okay with it. I think that it's probably okay to not be playing that right now, but it is a nice thing with Displacer.
Yeah.
Apparition is what lost me the grand finals, and well, really, we were actually discussing this earlier today on the Discord for the tournament. It didn't lose me the finals. It changed who I lost to. So we were in a situation where Godo was gonna win because they had enough mana because they had played a KCI. So I had to remove the KCI because everyone else has decided to tap out. The Kinnan player was still locked out. They could make infinite colorless mana and they couldn't do anything with it. What they were able to do is get 2 blind Kinnan activations. And they got a clone effect and cloned my Skyclave to remove first the. Oh no, first they played Phyrexian Metamorph, cloned Skyclave, removed a Curse Totem. Then they activated Kinnan, got another clone, cloned Skyclave again, removed my Rule of Law. And that enabled them to go off.
They
So
must have been on the last week's Greedy Keeps list where it's Keenan's House of Mirrors, which is the
yes,
The clone dense list. That's sick.
Yeah, so Skyclave did stop me from losing Nick Goto. The Kin player got a really lucky series of draws and Kin activations that let them use my Skyclave against me, but I still think it's a really good card. Now this hand I would 100% keep. So there's two reasons. Um, Almost always a turn one land tax is good. If you're going first with this hand, obviously the land tax is less interesting. But what it's nice is that it's paired with Serra Sanctum, which means that you actually have it as a pseudo ramp spell. We play Serra Sanctum because Heliod's an enchantment, and often Sanctum adds two or more. And in this case, it's probably going to, as of after turn 3, add two or more. What you'd want to do with this hand is probably go Snow Cover Plains land tax or Vista for Plains land tax. And then next turn play Magistrate. And Magistrate's just such a good card. If you have a turn 2 Magistrate, you should do it.
There are a lot of decks that cannot beat that.
Yes,
at least for a while.
I think you can steal a lot of pods by just dropping a turn 2 Magistrate or a turn 1
I think
Magistrate.
a turn 2 Magistrate followed up by like blowing up a Ristic Study or something. Like, it's very often people just keep like a permanent based value engine that just kind of like does quite a lot. And I can totally imagine a scenario where you like turn 1 land tax, turn 2 drain, and turn 3 Skyclave Apparition, whatever value card is in play. Next turn you play Heliod, give Apparition lifelink, and get in and start beating people up.
Exactly. So I think that with this hand, that's what. Even though you don't have a route to the combo, you have land tax. It's going to pull out 9 lands from your or 8 lands from your deck, rather in this case, because you have one of them in your hand. But you're going to be able to ramp a little bit once you get the Heliod down on turn 3. You're going to be able to pump Magistrate and Apparition. So I think this is a very keepable hand. Now, it's basically not one of those hands I described earlier. So, you only have one real hate piece, and then you have, like, removal and hate have to be thought of slightly different. Often the removal is to stop the hate against you, or to be, like, really have to stop one of these value engines. But Magistrate is just such a powerful card that it's hard to have a functional hand with Magistrate in it and not keep it. I would. This is certainly a hand I would keep.
Yeah,
Especially if you look at the number of pips you have. I mean, this is probably with Sanctum and Nykthos, by turn 4, you're going to have like 7 or 8 mana. And so that means that you might even be able to go off with Triskelion, which is always nice to have the mana to be able to combo with Triskelion. This is a fairly solid hand.
Yeah, like
now,
it's like an Enlightened Tutor. If you hit like an Enlightened Tutor, let's say,
yeah,
or Ballista, like it's like Enlightened Tutor, Ballista, any of your creature tutors.
Yeah, you have so many live
live
draws. Yeah. And I think you have enough live draws that this is okay. Plus, if you draw, like we were talking about before, if you draw Bizarre Baghdad with that land tax, there you go. Even Mask of Memory with that land tax. Now you're just getting so much card advantage, and people are going to be slowed down by Magistrate. If we're in a pot against something like Kinnan, like, this is golden, because you just jam the Magistrate, and now the deck really doesn't function that well. So definitely keepable.
All right, let's look at another one. Snow-covered plains, Path to Exile, Snow-covered plains, Weathered Wayfarer, Snow-covered plains, Rest in Peace, Snow-covered plains. This seems not as good, right?
This is not as good. So I think Rest in Peace is not that great of hate right now. I mean, it's good against Breach, but they'll just remove it before they do their Breach stuff. Sure, they'll lose a little bit to feed the Breach.
Yeah. They lose like a value breach, but most of these breach decks are not value breaching. They're playing Brain Freeze and then breaching, and so it's not.
They remove their, then they're gonna go. Having 4 lands in hand with a Wayfarer doesn't feel good, because you really want to use the Wayfarer to get the lands.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you had to mull down to 4, I would keep Plains, Path, Wayfarer, Rest. That is a fine hand. But otherwise, yeah, this is a fairly sketchy hand.
All right, we can throw this one back. Look at a second 7. Aethersworn Canonist, Windswept Heath, Enlightened Tutor, Blind Obedience, Remorseful Cleric, Bazaar of Baghdad, and Sanctum Prelate. All right, be honest with me here. Are we tutoring up land tax?
I don't think I've ever E-tutored for land tax. If I kept this hand, which I think is also a little bit sketchy. I would probably e-tutor for a mana crypt so that turn 2 I can play Canonist or Obedience. Um, and then I mean, you have a lot of 2 CMC hate here, which means you can kind of live off of only having 2 or 3 mana for a while and still be making impactful moves.
Yeah.
And then you have the Bazaar, so you still will hit a turn 2 land drop. And you can maybe, if you don't start drawing more white sources, ditch the Prelate and the Remorseful Cleric to draw into some stuff. So this isn't that bad of a hand because it just has so many good hate pieces in it, and it has the tutor for the mana crypt. It would be great if your draw for turn was another land, so you didn't have to play e-tutor for the mana crypt. But I would say this is a little bit greedy of a keep, but I would definitely keep a hand like this.
All right. I mean, it is literally greedy keeps, so
Yeah,
I'd be a
exactly.
little
Yeah,
disappointed. I'd be a little disappointed if we didn't at
yeah,
least have one. All right.
yeah.
One more. Grafdigger's Cage, Snow-Covered Plains, Linvala, Keeper of Silence, Knowledge Pool, Aven Mind Sensor, Order of the Sacred Torch, and Snow-Covered Plains. And yes, you're reading that right. Order of the Sacred Torch says tap, pay 1 life, counter target black spell. I don't know what they were thinking, but it's
Oh,
a sick magic card.
it's so good. And this is one of those cards that creates feel bads because people just like don't know what it is. It comes into play and it's like people don't even register it. I saw someone cast go Oracle Pact into this once at the tournament outside of Philly. A Najila player cast the Oracle, responded to the trigger with a Pact, and I countered it with the ability, and they were just like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, I read the card to everyone when I cast it, but it's just like it's such a weird card and people misplay into it. But let's be honest, ad nause is everywhere. You need to be able to stop an ad nause.
This
And we
card
don't have
says
stack
3
interaction.
mana stops someone's ad nause. And I think even
Yeah.
better than that, you know, sometimes the threat of a counter is way more impactful than having the counter,
Yes.
And in this case, you get to have the threat of the counter without ever having to use it.
Yes.
Who's going to cast a demonic tutor into this? Probably
No
someone who already has ad nause in hand. If we're being
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
about it. If someone, I imagine this is a situation you've been in before. Someone casts a black spell into it, and it's they're either punting or I'm being baited. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
At one point, because this card really ruins Gitrog Monsters Day, because also basically most of their removal for it is black. So I had someone, I don't think they DT'd. I think maybe they Imperial Sealed, and I countered it, and then they Assassin Trophied it. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with you wasting all of these cards because you need to resolve your Gitrog. It's okay.
Those are the two best cards. So
Exactly, and I wasn't gonna let you Imperial Seal. I wasn't gonna let you do it. So yeah,
right.
it's a sneaky card. This hand highlights something that can be a little bit awkward about this deck. It has a pretty good curve, but sometimes you get a hand like this where you have a 1 mana play, no 2 mana plays, only 2 mana in hand, and then a 3, a 3, a 4, and a 6. The stats on this are there's a good chance that you'll have 3 mana on turn 3. You're going to see 2 more draws or 3 more draws before that, and you got a third mana sources, and your hand is light on mana, so there's a good chance you'll have a third source. If Grafdigger's Cage is really good at the pod, then you might want to risk it, especially if you also think that Order of Sacred Torch is going to be good. But you have a knowledge pool with no way to make a lock, and that Linvala is really far away. So
I think 3 of these cards in this hand have no text, right?
Yeah.
I don't see Linvala, Knowledge Pool, or even Mind Sensor really doing anything for the foreseeable future. This is a hand defined by a turn one Grafdigger's Cage and the promise of a potential Order of the Sacred Torch. Is that a fair estimate?
I think so. I mean, Mind Sensor is good for just blowing people out because there's everyone's on fetches, everyone's on tutors, but it's not a specific hate card that shuts a deck down. Now you do win games sometimes. If you have a turn 1 Mind Sensor, you can just win a match because no one can fetch.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Ooh, it's just stressful even thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the death and taxes thing, right? Where there are some games where you just win automatically because like you jam a mine. They're not driving usually mine sensors. They're usually talking about like the Cat Jesus
Leon
and
and
I
Arbiter.
yeah I play Leon Arbiter too because like a tournament Leon Arbiter is often game over for a lot of decks that are four colors, and it's just becomes, especially if you're really just trying to tutor for combos and you don't have a value engine, you just start playing like lots of tutors. It's great. In this case,
Yeah.
because you can't play Mind Sensor earlier, it's not as attractive. Linvala, if you see your opponents on Urza or Kinnan, or like maybe it's a Brostorm deck going on somewhere, you might want the Linvala in your opening hand. I'm a little soft on Linvala right now because I just feel like, and we talked a little bit about how Timna Thracios is not as common anymore. Just decks playing a lot of dorks, not as common anymore, I think in general.
Yeah,
Thracios is not as common. Linvala is doing less and less. And at 4 mana, you want cards to be doing a lot more. So I've actually considered cutting Linvala recently. I mean, there are some times where you really, really want a Linvala, and it shuts down some decks. But
I feel like this is like one of the things where like your tournament list might be different than like your I play every week list. Like I
yeah,
could see Linvala being really useful in a tournament where people generally are playing like pet decks, and I think a lot of the really good pet decks in this format are like Thrasios, Exilus, Kinnan, Najila. Decks that people like. When I say pet decks, I just mean like decks that people feel really passionately about and play quite a bit. Heliod,
yeah,
Heliod's another example of that.
yeah,
Heliod does lose to Linvala,
yep.
so I feel like Linvala is really good into like a tournament meta where I like the meta I play in. I don't think Linvala does anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of metas where Linvala probably doesn't do anything. So that's why, I mean, you might want to keep this hand if you know you absolutely need the Linvala. But I would say not having a turn two play in this format feels really bad right now. When you have like Turbonaut decks not doing anything other than playing a Grafdigger's Cage.
yeah, I feel like Grafdigger's Cage is not going to stop Turbonaws.
It's not. I mean, Grafdigger's Cage used to just be worth so much more in the Flash meta. Like a turn one Grafdigger's Cage would almost always be a keep when Flash was a deck. Now there's not enough people trying to reanimate Villas. Like
Yeah,
that's like the other time you'd want to use it. So yeah, this is a sketchy keep. I probably wouldn't keep it. If it's the second 7, I would consider it, but I'd probably go to 6.
all right, let's go to 6. Snow-covered plains, homeward path, Sajiri's shelter. Notice I can pronounce that because I played I played it in Legacy for a time. The Sajiri step. So
Yeah.
Sajiri's shelter, Mana Vault, Knowledge Pool, Rule of Law, Myria's Call.
So this is a
This
hundred
is
percent a keep.
yeah, this hand's actually kind of insane, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, this is a very good hand. You're gonna be able to ramp out the knowledge pool rule of law lock. You have all the mana you need. You might not actually need to use the shelter for mana, which is the great thing. And that means you have a spell to cast into the knowledge pool if the rule of law gets broken, so that you can steal something else at instant speed. Like that's one of the really nice things about knowledge pool. Your instants become your opponent's counter spells that have been exiled on the knowledge
Oh
pool and
wow,
stuff
that's
like
really
that.
cool.
Yeah. So I actually am really into the Tajiri shelter. I mean, we need stack interaction, but usually it's to protect our hate pieces. This is a 2 mana protect your hate piece spell that also doubles as a land when you need it. Um, I think it's actually just a really good card. Yeah, and having the mana vault just makes this hand so good.
Yeah,
So I would
lets you
100%
rush
keep
out
it.
that knowledge pool.
Yeah, and even so, if this is your 6, you might put back the snow-covered plains. The other great thing, Homeward Path is really good with Knowledge Pool. If people start casting your hate bears, you just take them
Oh
back.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Would
So
you hold up the homeward path for a bit?
yeah, sometimes I would. I mean, if I go for the lock right away, because this is a hand where you might go for the lock right away, no mattering what other people's commanders are. You don't really have other creatures, right? This hand doesn't have any creatures in it, so you might not want to lock out right away. You might want to go for the rule of law, get the mana ready for the pool, and try to put some things on board first. Um, or there is this could be a hand where you say, based on the decks you're playing, I'm going to turbo out the knowledge pool and hold the rule of law, cast the rule of law to put it under the pool to steal some stuff, and just wait until because like no one else wants to cast your rule of law off the pool.
That's a great point. That's
yeah.
a really good point.
And that's
you're on more enchantments anyway. Like it's very
yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
So one of the things about knowledge pool in this deck is that you have a lot of symmetric stacks pieces that you want in play. So people casting your spells off the pool is good for you.
I feel like one thing is that your cards are so bad. Like your cards are so incredibly bad that like if you think of knowledge pool as like a card that just takes the average card quality and equally disperses it across the table, you're like demonic tutor.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm now trading my bad cards for their good cards, and if they cast my bad cards, my deck is built for those cards to be in play. Theirs is not. So like no one gains value from casting my hate pieces, but that's what they're stuck with. So I really like this hand. I would love this hand. Now,
this hand is sick.
One of the things I've always dreamt of is flipping an Emir's Call on a knowledge pool and then like playing Lotus Petal to get my Emir's Call. Because so many times when knowledge pool comes out, it just takes so long for people to do anything that you can just beat them down. I've been worried about flipping Emir's Call and letting someone else cast it. That is a thing that I probably don't want to happen. But yeah, this is a sweet hand, and I think it kind of highlights the strength of the modal double-faced lands.
Oh, they're so good.
They're so good. I am, doing the controversial thing still on the Heliod server is I'm playing the Cabiria takedown one. So that's 1 colorless, 1 white instant. It's 1 colorless, 1 white instant. Takedown deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. Now,
wait, that's just really good.
Well, it's good. It's good because it's extra removal that is also a land. I often have creatures in play, so it's gonna deal damage. And
it just seems good.
It seems good. It's 2 mana for that effect feels like a lot. Like you would like that to be a 1 mana effect.
You're in white.
You're in white, exactly.
The way I think of these is like like when you like have a rampant growth in your hand in casual and you don't have a land drop and you're like, shit, I just have to cast this rampant growth and that's my land for turn. So I'm paying 2 mana for a demonic tutor that puts the land into play tapped. Like that's how this card is right now. That's how I kind of evaluate these. Is it's like I get to turn this really shitty card, this card that's like usually shitty, into like a land at no cost instead of paying that like 2 mana. That's kind of how I think of them.
Another way to think about it is that it's basically like you have to pay 1 when you choose the mode. So like the land enters tapped, so you're effectively paying 1, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Sejiri's Shelter is 2 mana, and that effect's usually at 1, so you're paying 1 extra, but you have 2 modes that you get to choose from, and like paying 1 extra for more modes is pretty normal. Like look at Cryptic Command. You're basically paying 2 extra to get to choose. Here you're getting 1 extra to get to choose, and I think getting to choose for it to be a land is like a kind of a big deal. It's a bigger deal than some people think.
Actually, this is something I kind of want to talk to you about in the after, so I guess we can kind of just move into that. I'm just going to put the hand away. Because I noticed you're playing a few of the MDFCs. I've been playing Aghanim's Awakening in Korvold.
Oh yeah,
and that card is disgusting.
Super cool. Yeah.
How do you feel about the? I mean, we've already kind of addressed this, but I just want I'd appreciate if you restated. What do you think of the MDFCs in cEDH, like in general, in mono white? What do you think?
So I think they're good for mono white. I mean, Heliod's a deck where you can't afford to have your lands come to play tapped sometimes. If you put down hate pieces and now you're just trying to get to your win con, who cares that when your land's tapped? So I think we can really utilize them. And the other thing is that our deck needs to have high, not threat density, but action density. So being able to put more effects into the land spot really helps us be able to do that.
How many just like cards that are exclusively lands are you playing right now?
Let's see. I think right now that are exclusively lands, it's 30 or 29, not counting the modal double face ones. But then there's Bazaar Baghdad. So Bazaar Baghdad's not really a land.
Yeah, Bazaar Baghdad's like a reverse modal DFC. It's like you're getting an absolutely busted card, but when you play it as a land drop, you don't get a land. So
Yeah. So I've really tried to figure out what's the minimum number of lands we can play, because we don't want to be drawing lands when we need to draw action. And I think that this has really helped. These cards really help that because they're effects we want. We want removal. Like we need to be able to remove a Collector Roof. So having more creature removal is not a bad
yeah,
thing.
that's why I think like I I feel like this deck in particular has a lot of turns where it can play a tapped land. Corvold also
Exactly.
has that. Corvold also has that a bit where like there's turns where like I have this land, I just need to play it, attack with Corvold, sack the land. I don't care that it enters tapped.
Yes,
This is how it
exactly.
is. But I also
Yes.
feel like in Heliod, you have a lot of turns where you're like, all right, I just like I don't have a one drop, but I have like a two. I have a Thalia, so like I'm just gonna play this Sajiri, whatever. Have it enter
Yeah,
tap. Next turn, play my Thalia. Next turn, play my Heliod, or
exactly.
like some other effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's so many pods that's gonna be an absolutely fine way to go. So I think they're really good. And I mean the ones that enter untapped if you pay 3 life is
Oh my
like
god, they're just absurd.
all the monocolor decks I think should be playing them until like everyone's on Archon of Emeria and like back to basics. Like there's not a reason to not be playing non-basics right now. I mean you do get punished if people are playing things like Archon. Um,
If you're like in blue, I could see being on back to basics, but even then, like I've seen a lot of mono blue decks, like at least like not play too hard into that. Like that's
yeah,
not like a primary part of their game
and
plan.
and like Blood Moon isn't really a problem for monocolor decks because even if some of their lands now add basically colorless, like it's not a big deal. They
I was
only
talking about
need
this.
one or two colored sources.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Ian. Even if you're a two color deck, like Ian's playing the red one because if there's a blood moon in play, it's just a basic mountain, which is
Yeah, exactly.
what it is already. And then if there isn't a blood moon in play, it's just a basic mountain. His life total doesn't matter at all. He's not on
Yeah.
the Emiria one because it could conceivably matter that that is a mountain instead of a plains in a
Yes.
two color deck. But that red one like is a removal spell, and like
It's a rule. Yeah.
sometimes you're going to pay. I think it's like 4 mana to kill a 2/2 or something.
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
I'm gonna do that. That's I'm gonna
That's a
replace a
real
land with
good
a
deal.
removal spell. That's like
Yeah.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
I yeah. So
Even 4 mana to kill two dorks is like a good deal, right? Because it's divided among up to two creatures. Like
oh
that's
yeah.
actually not a bad spell to begin with.
There's even like I mean maybe they're not very popular, but there's cards like I mean you could even conceivably go like kill your Nagila, kill a token.
Yeah.
Um, for 5, which is like doesn't sound great, but if you're like a Godo deck and the Neo Geo player is like the only person who's like gotten under your stacks pieces, you
Do
know,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I think
I
that's
think
actually like a pretty good example. Like Najila has a turn one Najila Crypt, you like drop down like a Blood Moon or a Trinisphere or something, just get it out there and kill him. So
yeah. I really like the red one. I like the black one. I think the white one is one of the worst ones.
I
It's
think
just
I think I think you're wrong, only because I think it's so cheap. It's so cheap to play. Like
yeah.
there is no cost in the white decks that are out there.
There's no
Like
cost. Yes.
in Grand Arbiter, right? 7 mana for 2/4/4s with flying and vigilance that gives your stuff indestructible. That's like an actual win condition on a
Yeah. Yeah.
land.
Yes. In Grand
Like
Arbiter, especially because it's going to cost less with Grand Arbiter in play.
oh like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's real.
Yeah.
That's like actually significant that like oh my god I've locked them out, I've gotten the stacks to be such a point that people just can't play Magic. I just need to end the game. 8 power on board is going to get there
Yeah. Because
sometimes, and that
even
3 life
in
is not. That 3 life is not going
no,
to come up very often.
even in cEDH, 8 power is a lot. Like
Oh my god,
it still kills people quite quickly, and everyone's real greedy with their life totals. So like you and even if a game goes long, swinging at the Adnaz player for 8 means their Adnaz is never going to be viable again. Like if
yeah,
it's like
that's
turn
like
7,
huge.
turn 8.
I
So
mean,
it's not bad. It helps because we often aggro people out. It's just like I wish there was a different effect. Probably. I do probably
yeah,
wish it was something else.
it's still crazy when you like put a Sarah Angel on a land. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. If
with
if
for 2 more mana you get 2 of them.
because the rare one is like an 8 mana destroy all non-land permanents. If that had been on the untap land, maybe I'd be happier. There's actually not that many times where you're gonna blow up your own stacks
I was about to
pieces.
say, I feel like your deck, the 4 power, with flying
Is
and vigilance, is
it,
probably actually better than that.
yeah.
Just because like you don't want to lose all the stacks pieces you've been building up the whole game.
Yeah, but even if they had made like this is Jerry Shelter, the untapped one, and it costs 3 to use, I'd be like, yeah, go for it. Or if it was like 4 mana or 5 mana, all your creatures gain protection from something to end a turn, I would play that. Um, but yeah, so I'm not super happy with what the white one was, but it's still good for the deck.
It's still
Um,
crazy how good they are. Just like
yeah,
objectively, they're
well,
really good.
it's a little bit of what I'm concerned about in general design with Magic right now is like I think the modal lands are better than they thought they were going to be. And it's just like lowering variance is a it's a scary thing to do in Magic. Like we saw what happened with partners. Like you see what happens with the companions. You don't want to lower variance in Magic too much, and the modal lands do reduce variance quite a bit. They let you kind of effectively play more lands, but still have action. So, I mean, it's good for Heliod, but I think that now there's like they're at the point where they can make design mistakes like quite frequently with these
Yeah,
kinds of things.
I have one last question for you as we turn this like Greedy Keeps into an hour-long podcast. What do you think? So we saw Dockside, we saw Breach. I think Breach we could have seen. Like I think if you'd asked me like what is the most busted thing that seems to be in Red's color pie today that you could see being printed, I'd be like, probably like a red Yawgmoth's Will.
Yeah.
Breach is better than that. What is the thing that is in White's color pie today that you think like could conceivably be printed that would just like blow the color wide open? Do you have anything you've been brewing on?
So this is I don't think anything's gonna blow it wide open. What White needs is some kind of card advantage engine that is cheap. And I think they need to attach it to the creature count. Like they've done a lot of stuff with like Kabir Takedown counts the number of creatures. There's a lot of things that activate when you attack with 3 or more creatures. Like one white enchantment that said if you attack with 3 or more creatures, draw a card is a very seemingly legit card. It's hard to set up. You're not going to draw off it for many turns, but like something like some effects like that would really help. I mean, they made Mangara, and it's not a good card, right? They gave White all the draw
Yeah,
they're giving White has been bad, but if they could give it a good draw engine that's within the tutor portfolio as well, because that's like one major problem with White as well is that the tutor space is really
oh,
low.
so like a battalion card that says like there's that goblin that has
Yes,
battalion. So like a
yeah,
1 mana goblin with battalion, or not goblin. Well, maybe a goblin, but
soldier, something
one
White.
mana soldier. Oh, soldier. That way it can get tutored up. Like a
Yeah,
1 mana soldier that's like battalion. When it attacks, you draw a card. If you attack with
yeah.
4 or more other creatures,
Something
yeah,
something like that would be really nice. I mean, I would love for us to get something. It's not broken enough. It's not like Breach, right? And there's not a lot of white effects that seem like they're like Breach. Maybe there are rule changing effects, because like if you think of the effect that's on Brizella, the Meld Angels, where it's like players can't cast spells 3 CMC or less. If there was a way to get that effect into play that was legitimately possible, like you're never gonna meld.
yeah, yeah.
I've thought about it. I've tried to figure out how to do it, and I really would love to be able to meld those two, and because that effect wins you a cEDH pod. I don't think there's any decks
Especially
that
with
can
that
beat
body
that.
in play.
Yeah, there's no decks that can beat that, but it's just so impossible to assemble that. But if they put that effect on like a 6 mana enchantment or something, or like there was some condition to gain an effect that is so good in competitive EDH, that could really turn things around.
I wonder.
That
I
just
could see something that cares about like the second spell you cast each turn.
well,
Um,
even the problem with that is that like with the White really benefits right now with the rule of law effects. So like anything that cares about casting multiple spells is tough to play in White right now. Um, and that is a little bit filled with that. Like Damping Sphere can't be played in Heliod really because it most of the time does nothing because you have a rule of law effect, and you can't play any of the ramp White has now. Like you can't play your Workshop, you can't play your Ancient Tomb. Um, so that's why I'm a
Interesting.
little skeptical of this idea of triggering on when people cast more spells. Even though when I saw Mangara, I was like, oh, this is a great effect. now that I play more games with the rule of effects, it just
Oh
seems
yeah, like
not
that
good
makes a lot of
enough.
sense because like your entire deck is about making sure Mangara can't draw cards.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, when you think about, they print Breach, that seems like this big thing that makes red really attractive. Magistrate is a really good card, and it wins games. And I think because it doesn't have like the flashiness of Breach, people don't think it's as good. But like if you can protect a Magistrate, you will win a game.
So do you think
Because
what White needs then is just more cards like Magistrate that just like attack the format in a very unique way,
yeah,
um,
and that's why like
like
the
on Bears?
yeah, on bears, I mean, if you could put them on enchantments, that would be wonderful. The problem is that it's just so hard to protect creatures. The format is really greedy and like no one's playing removal right now, which is excellent for us. Everyone should keep playing Force of Negation and stop playing Assassin's Trophy and Abrupt Decay. Like just that's great, but yeah, I would love them on enchantments. More powerful effects on enchantments or on creatures. I mean, one thing they've been really scared about is creatures that have built-in protection. If they
Yeah,
built hay bears in with protection from certain colors, that would be really nice. But
I
I
think
don't
they
think
would
they'll
do
do
that
that.
for green. I think is the problem. Like I
Yeah,
could see a
yeah,
green card with
exactly.
that, but I don't think I could see them doing a white card with
Yeah,
that.
well, because it's like hexproof and is not in White's color pie really. Protection is, but they hate giving protection.
Yeah,
The hexproof from color was kind of like what they thought they would do instead, but that's not really White at the moment. Um, but even like the effects, like when it's kind of blue. This one where it's like when it's targeted, counter the speller ability unless they pay a cost. That is something that you could see in White's color pie, and might be worthwhile to put on hay bears. Just some built-in protection because they're relatively fragile. But I think Magistrate shows that when you have a hate piece that's efficient and attacks exactly how the format works, it can be very, very powerful. Deafening Silence is another one of those cases where it can just like mess up a match so much that you will definitely win. A
so do you
myriad,
think like do you think that so if we look at like Dockside, right? We had like Dockside, Breach, and Deflecting Swat, right? And I
yeah,
think like we could look at that and that's like that is a line. They're those cards are all directly connected to each other, right?
yes,
Do you think in the next year we're going to start seeing like a line between like Deafening Silence, Strength Magistrate, and then some cards we just haven't seen yet,
yeah.
where we
Well,
start to see?
I think Gertie, you have like Deafening Silence, Magistrate, Archon of Emeria. Like
All
Archon of
right,
Emeria is a very powerful card, and it's not efficient enough to always be a card that wrecks a game, right? The land non-basic lands entering tapped effect, if that was at 1 or 2 mana, would be really great in mono white.
yeah, there's a lot of decks that just can't beat that.
Yeah, like Root Maze is an annoying card for every deck in the
Yeah,
format. And
yeah, that's
imagine if White
terrifying.
had its own Root Maze, especially an opponent's only, non-basic Root Maze would be really really good. So I think there is a
Please, no.
yeah. I mean, I hope that they're designing a little bit more of this. I know that they really don't like stacks and hate effects for standard because it doesn't feel good for new players and it doesn't make games exciting on arena, and possibly probably is bad at best of one in arena, right? Hate pieces make best of one feel really bad if you're only in one match and they like turn one deafening silence you and you're
Yeah, and
sunfish.
I feel like one problem is that like red cards that are good in Commander and red
Yeah,
cards that are good in um like sorry, red cards are good in Commander, red cards that are good in Standard are totally different.
yeah,
Like
like Dockside isn't good in standard, it would never be good. So
or even
like
Breach. Breach is not like Breach isn't
yeah,
banned, and Breach is banned in other in like Legacy, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
but with White, I feel like Archon, for example, right? That's a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. That's like a double stacks piece.
Yeah,
That card
that's
could see standard play. That card is like
exactly.
actually realistically powerful, right?
Magistrate would have saw a ton of play if they hadn't aired a partner
Oh yeah.
or a
So I
companion rather. Yeah,
that might be part of the reason that we're not seeing it as quickly as red is because like when they do print red cards into standard that are commander focused, they're either not good in standard or they're not good in commander, you know?
yeah. And I'm a little worried because they messed up so bad with green blue. Like they all the commander cards in Simic
They're
have been
disgusting.
too good in standard, and like ruining standard because you wanted some cEDH players or EDH casual EDH players to have a 4 color commander is like not a good look. So I'm a little worried about how that affects the design of white. But I mean, I think they know that people are so mad about white that they're gonna take some design risks soon, and I'm hoping they do. I hope they take some weird design risks. I want my 2 mana spell that makes people unable to cast 3 CMC or less spells. That's what I want. Just, give me some ridiculous card that breaks cEDH that Sheldon decides is cool because it only breaks cEDH. That's what I need. We need that card that will never get banned because casual commanders players will not care, but it just fundamentally breaks the format. And I
Fundamentally breaks the format.
Yeah,
Michael out here rooting for the end of cEDH. Let's go.
Well, I mean,
Heliod's the best deck, and you all can't play Magic.
Yeah. No, players can't cast non-creature spells. Let's go. I want that right now.
On a one mana dork.
Yeah, just on some dork. Because that gives itself basically protection from removal right away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. You are asking for hate bears that protect themselves. You got it.
Yes, and that or keep giving us mom effects. Else out of Life's Bounty was like a really nice thing. Bringing back the creatures that protect creatures and non-creature permanents is nice. Giver of Runes was really good for the deck because it's reusable. So, but hate bears that protect themselves would be just so much better. Just so much better.
All right.
So
we just crossed over into the hour mark, so I think it's probably appropriate for us to finish this one up. I'm sure you have stuff to do, and I'm sure that people are going to have a hard time listening to a full hour of Heliod and mono white discussion. So
yes,
we're going to have to cut it off.
It'll just be me listening over and over again.
That's too real. All right. I remember I was on Lab Maniacs once. I listened to it like twice because I was just so excited. I was like, oh, I was on Lab Maniacs. Ah. So I've done that before, embarrassingly enough. All right. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. Do you have anything you want to shill? Anything you want to talk about real quick?
Just come to the Heliod Discord server. Come to the Lincivi Discord server. I assume most of your listeners know that there's these tournaments that have been going on, but I think that there are some people who have kind of missed that there's all these cockatrice tournaments going on, and it's a really nice way to keep playing despite COVID. And I know I was really pumped to go to more of your in-person tournaments.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, but while we're kind of stopped, these tournaments are really nice. Cockatrice is once you learn it, it's a really easy way to play Magic.
That's definitely
and you
true.
get to play with a lot of people from all over the world that you wouldn't get to play with. So definitely check out like the competitive EDH Discord for games through Cockatrice, cEDH games as well. Or just get random pods. I play random pods sometimes. It's not always a great idea. Yeah. It's not always a great idea, but it's usually a great idea.
I guess not random, but I've always have fun just playing a game with like some patrons or people who watch the show. I think I have a blast doing that. So you should start playing with us. That's what you should do, Michael.
That's what I last time I played with you, it was 3 Paco decks and me, and that was not the most fun.
No, I'm so sorry. That's unacceptable.
I think Paco exiled my ballista, and then I just watched you guys beat each other up with Paco as I was like left there to die. Yeah, it was.
Hey, this is why you need to put Karn back in your deck. I'm just saying.
Apparently, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Triple Pacos, just get them.
Yes. All right.
Thank you again. Thank you everyone who's still listening and watching to this.
Yeah, thank you for having me,
folks. Yeah, thank you. And again, congratulations to you for top 4ing the Oktoberfest cEDH tournament. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have gotten the impression from this video, but I'm a really big fan of Michael. I think Michael is probably one of the best cEDH players we have in the entire community. So really listen to him. He's really knowledgeable. Please harass him on Discord. Don't let him sleep tonight. He's going to wake up to the pings. Just flood him with text messages.
Yes, ping me. My Discord is Michael V. Levine, Levine. Just ping me with stuff. I mean, I love talking about the deck. I can send you lists and stuff and invite you to the Discord. So feel free to ping me. It's fine.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice one. Bye.